I'll start the podcast. I want the smell to dissipate. Flagship podcast number 327 from the 20 Minute Tims. I'm your host Jamie, and I'm joined by Stephen.
What's happening?
And Melly.
Yes.
And it's Christmas time, mistletoe and wine, and we're still recording podcasts all of the time.
Yes, we are. It's the Christmas gooch. The Christmas gooch season. We are slap bang in the middle between Christmas and New Year. One of those periods of everyone's life where you're not really sure what to do with yourself. You don't know what day of the week it is. Everything's just
Christmas
a
at
bit
the Gucci.
Christmas at the Gucci. That's I'm glad you squeezed that in.
Stretch that.
But yeah, so what better to do than sit down and record some red hot podcast content?
There will be some people sitting at home, thinking they're just watching reruns on the TV, James Bond films on ITV3, and they'll be thinking, there's no way the 20 Minute Tims are going to get together during Christmas and record a flagship podcast for us. Well, surprise, surprise, here we are.
Think
again. If Celtic play, we record the podcasts. And that's one thing that I've been struck by, Melly, how thick and fast these games are coming. It's like every couple of days Celtic are back on the pitch.
Yeah, you forget about what day it is, and then we're playing. Even the game at the weekend there caught up on me. I thought it was a 3 o'clock kickoff right up until the day before, and then found out. I was like, oh no. So they're coming thick and fast. Me and Stephen were doing that at the match for the St Johnstone game. It felt like the day before we were standing at the same place doing it for the Livingston game. But Celtic are back, and look, we missed it for so long, I can't complain, and we're dishing out the old victories as well, so I can't grumble.
That's the best thing about it, isn't it, Stephen? Because there's so much talk about Rangers, 3 games in the bounce, and They managed to snatch a win at Aberdeen, they managed to snatch a win at Ross County, and we're really building momentum, but it doesn't really matter because the Celtic winning machine just keeps rolling on.
Well, exactly. The pressure is definitely on them because Celtic's record this season has been extraordinary, really. I mean, it's only going to be, maybe once the season's over, we can probably look back on it and think what an incredible period that was. Well, it's still going just now. I'm talking like it's over, but the amount of wins that Celtic have managed to rack up this season has been incredible. Just save for that one dip, that one blip on the radar against St Mirren, it's been 100% wins and a half decent Champions League campaign in there as well. So it's been great.
One thing that struck me, the Livingston game, out the 2 games, we're probably going to end up talking about this in the podcast. The St Johnstone game was the better game, and it was the most recent game, so that's going to feature more prominently. But one thing that struck me was the Livingston game. It wasn't pretty. It was another one of these ones that wasn't pretty. But for the first time, Ange kind of acknowledged that. Ange was saying after the game, Melly, there's players not in positions that they know they're supposed to be in, and that was pretty evident, and I think that's probably what led to the changes for the St Johnstone game.
Yeah, I think so. And you maybe wonder after that, well, who is he talking about? Because most likely it's the front 3. Kyogo, you can maybe go, but he did get a goal in there. But when the St Johnstone lineup comes out and the 2 wide players are dropped to the bench, you go, it must have been those 2. And look, it's fair enough. Celtic, while the game wasn't great, they did create enough chances in the first half to put that game well out of sight. The amount of balls that were flashed across the box, so you expect someday, Abada or Jota, just to be coming in to tap in, which they've done in the past. And it kind of felt like Ange was like, you know what, maybe that was a bit lazy from them, or they weren't up to his standards. And if you're not up to his standards, you don't play, and that's what happened in the next game. And when you've seen in the next game, the goals Celtic got are Celtic goals that we've scored all the time under Ange, so he got what he wanted.
You guys predicted it on the At The Match podcast or Patreon when Anthony Ralston went off injured in the Livingston game. You thought, maybe we might see Rio Hatate play right back there. It's a position that he's not unfamiliar with.
Well, I think he'd played a little bit of left back before he came, because I remember some of the...
It was full. It was there. I thought it was at left back.
It
was at left back. Right?
It was left back, weirdly, because we thought he was going to be the guy who took that position, because the Taylor's position was a little bit uncertain when Rio Hatate first came to the club, but he's been absolutely brilliant since then.
He was injured at the time as well.
Yeah, we thought, right, he's the guy who's... This sounds absolutely mental to say now. I know people will be listening to that thinking, left back, that's absolutely crazy, but that did show up in some of the information about Hatate at the time, was that he was a bit of a utility player. I think Celtic even announced him as a utility player in that New Year's Eve graphic that came up with the 3 Japanese players that were coming in. I think they announced him as a utility player, and I thought at the time, don't know, but
it's always the word utility player never fills you with confidence, does it?
No, not at all. But I never thought for a single second we'd ever, once he came in and started playing in midfield, it became apparent that it's ridiculous to think of him at left back. But when Ralston went off injured, there was a moment where Hatate went over to kind of speak to the coaching staff. He went over for a drink, and I thought, are they going to do this here?
Come on.
I quite like the sound of that, because I remember it was so brief. I think it might even have been for one maximum of 2 games, but I remember Stuart Armstrong played a little bit as a kind of attacking right back a wee bit under Brendan Rodgers, and I remember being quite impressed at the time. But Hatate, to come in the next game and play like that, man of the match performance, 2 goals from right back, from a guy who's been playing absolutely brilliantly all season, what a performance it was.
It's a brilliant footballer, and when you see these guys, the way Celtic play in their sort of inverted fullbacks, you can see, right, okay, maybe he can fill in there. Look, he more than filled in there. He was absolutely exceptional. A wee bit of a slow start, a couple of loose passes, but the more the game went on, the more he was picking up space. And because he plays further forward, usually he maybe doesn't get as much space because teams sit in. Having him back there, just being able to dictate from that beside Cal McGregor and Greg Taylor, and then having space to run into when I think it was Moy out in that side, wasn't it? And James Forrest. So he was making these runs, and look, he's seen it with the goals as well. Moy lays him off for the first one. The second one, he's in there, and it's that he could have had a hat-trick from right back. He's an exceptional player. He's brilliant to watch, and because he goes there, it means Aaron Moy comes in. So you're looking at Celtic going, look, we're very strong all over the pitch. Even when 2 players don't play well, we bring in another 2 players, and Forrest Maeda done well, but Hatate just stood out. He was absolutely exceptional, and it leaves you in a wee bit of a good conundrum, because while Moy played well in there, do you keep Hatate there, or do you get more from him in midfield? Good options to have, but these next two games coming up will be pivotal in how Celtic do this season.
I know Hatate was good, but there is no denying that we've got, well, Easter Road away is typically a tricky game. They've not been doing so well recently, but the next 2 games are going to be tricky, and they're going to be season defining. How confident are you if Hatate has to stay at right back for both of those games?
Well, after seeing that, I'm perfectly confident in him.
Zero problems.
No, you definitely do lose from midfield. There's no, there's no free lunch when it comes to this. If you take Hatate out of the midfield, you do lose from it. As good as Moy has been, there's no getting away from it. Hatate has been one of the best players of the season. If you remove him from the midfield, we are not at quite full pelt, but this is football, innit? You sometimes get emergencies, you sometimes just need to get by with what you've got. If Hatate has to play at right back, it won't be ideal, but I won't be worried about his performance in that position. My only worry would be that he can't play in both positions. Basically, that's my only concern there. He's been absolutely excellent, and yeah, it might be just one of those ones. It may have just been a perfect storm. St Johnstone didn't offer him too much defensively. He was allowed a lot of space, as Melly has already said. He found a lot of space there. But to get forward and score a couple of goals from that position, just excellent. No, I'll have absolutely no worries. But you're right to point out that Easter Road is difficult, isn't it? Because Celtic have got a pretty ropey record there in very recent years. I think we've won... Of the last 9, we've only won 4 or something like that. There's a lot of draws in there as well. I don't think we've really lost in a long time, but it is one of those tricky fixtures that rears its head every so often.
I do still have my worries defensively, because Hibs and Rangers are going to be the 2 tougher tests he'll get if he does play it right back. I think Ralston will be back, and even if it gets down to the game at Ibrox, Juranovic will be back, and Alistair Johnston can play as well.
Yeah,
so
right.
4 good right backs at the club, lads. So all good. Just before we move on from this as well, I think the Livingston game maybe shaped Hatate moving back there. I mean, Stephen spoke after, thought he was going to do it, but Bernabe came on and Greg Taylor went to right back, and it just didn't work. Not that Taylor was bad there, but I thought it just upset the balance of the team, and you thought, it shows how well Juranovic done last season playing over there, because it didn't affect us too much, but having Taylor over there, he was always going inside, and it just didn't work out, and you thought, right, we kind of need a right footer there, so we need to do something a wee bit different. And you're looking at it as well, that the B team, there was no talk of any right back from there being brought up, so Hatate probably made sense, and it worked out well.
We seem to be quite well covered for injuries all over the pitch, but right back, as you said, we've got plenty of options there now. That you just add Hatate to the list as well. But in that moment you're talking about, when Bernabe came on, I was left thinking, if we get an injury to Taylor, the step down to Bernabe. I think Bernabe's got a bit of work to do, Stephen, doesn't he, before he even approaches first team starter status?
Oh, definitely. It's still a little bit rough around the edges. I think he started really quite poorly against Livingston, and I appreciate that some players are going to take a few minutes to get going, but do you know what? You're at Celtic though. We kind of need subs to come on and make a difference. It is unfortunate that we're in this position because we've got two right backs, the two main right backs missing at the same time. You can't really plan for that. You can't have just an infinite supply of right backs. Yeah, as Melly said, you would ideally have like somebody to step in from the B team, but it might just be the case that nobody's quite ready for that yet. So we do need people to come in and contribute, when we need them. Bernabe, I don't quite know about him yet. I don't want to be too harsh on him. I think he started off
£4.5 million.
Well, there is that. Yeah. That's not his fault, right enough, but
that's not his fault, but it's an indication of where they think his value is.
It comes with certain expectations. You're absolutely right. He started off really quite badly, grew into it a wee bit, started contributing a wee bit in an attacking sense, but his passing was absolutely shocking to begin with.
It's not the first time either with that passing. It's been pretty poor in other games we've been speaking about.
And you're right to say, Mel, that it just completely upset the balance of the thing, because there are maybe other examples of it. I wouldn't like to go in goals, for example, right? But moving your fullback across to the other side, there's nothing quite as awkward as that on the football pitch, is there? Because wingers can switch all the time because their objectives can be slightly different. You could be a guy who tries, like Forrest, who tries to get to the byline and put crosses in, or you go to the other side and you could be Jota, whose main thing is coming inside and either shooting or linking up with attack. But when you do that with fullbacks, it all just feels a little bit awkward.
The whole game changes, isn't it?
Off kilter, yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's a bit difficult right now because we're coming in off this break. The team's not changed too much. The defence has been pretty much the same, the midfield free, and it's only been through necessity we've changed it, which means guys like Bernabe, Giakoumakis, maybe even Turnbull and all these guys, they're maybe weeks behind now, and see when they come on, like the Livingston game there, all the subs we made, like Turnbull, Giakoumakis, Bernabe, like I mentioned, they all looked terrible, looked well off it when they came on, and effectively made Celtic worse off because you're looking for guys to come on and inject a bit, because the first half was decent enough, letting in that goal right before half time, but in the second half you need a wee injection of some players to come on. All the subs made them look worse, and again at the weekend Giakoumakis came on and his first touch, every time he was chasing the player after that to win it back. You're
kind of looking at him a wee bit, aren't you? All these stories that are swirling about. I know we had a big debate on the podcast recently. My position in Giakoumakis has sort of changed a wee bit. You know, he's putting up.
Gone off Giakoumakis, have you?
Yeah, he's putting up. He's putting up cryptic Instagram posts, and see when people start doing that, gives me the ick.
Tiresome, innit?
It's tiresome, and it doesn't even matter if it's like footballers or your mad auntie on Facebook, like whoever's like subtweeting or putting up like
snakes everywhere. It's just me and the Waynes for now.
When you've got stuff like that happening, he's putting up pictures with wee sand timers and all. I'm like, look, see if you want this big bumper contract or you want to move, go and earn it, right? But the two things that can't all go hand in hand is that bullshit that you're doing and the bullshit on the pitch. Because Sifi's coming off the bench, banging in 2 goals, looking absolutely dynamite, and Celtic are not offering him the contract that he wants, and he's doing it on social media. That's how you build up a head of steam to maybe get what you want, with the fans on side, with the manager on side going, look, this guy's bailed us out for 2 games. Yeah. He's a superstar in the making. We need to try and keep him because we can't. But if you're going to come on and you're looking like an absolute donkey, right? If you're looking like a fucking cart horse and you're moaning on social media and you're wanting more money, something needs to give. All 3 of those kind of go hand in hand if you want to get the fans on side, and that's kind of how I feel about him. I'm watching him in the last couple of games, I'm going, mate, you've been shite and you're moaning. Like, you need to really improve your performance if you want to go and earn that. And to a lesser extent, completely different situation, but Jota's been shite since he's come back as well, I think.
He was poor against Livingston.
Aye. But Giakoumakis in particular, all this stuff and all these stories that are swirling, I'm just like, it's getting a wee bit tiresome, to be honest with the guy.
All this can change if he scores the winner at Easter Road or at Ibrox. You're like, fair enough, mate. But
the point I'm making is, or what I was alluding to there was, I think all this off the pitch stuff, he's concentrating more on that now. Like his head, which footballer was it that tweeted #heads gone?
Oh yeah,
when he was in some sort of contract negotiation. I think this is a prime example of he's focusing on the wrong things now. See, when he was scoring goals and doing well, he was focusing on his on-pitch stuff. Now this off-pitch stuff is starting to creep into whatever he's concentrating on, and his performances have suffered. I think he just needs to forget about all that and get on with the job in hand.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you, mate, because I think, look, you can maybe say, oh, look, we're just guessing things, or we're trying to make things up, or try to pull things everywhere. But fact is, Celtic have came back, played a good number of games now, and he's not started one.
Yeah.
Whereas we've had rotation in other places where we are strong. Giakoumakis has been a sub, and to add to that as well, with his performance when he's come on, like the weekend, the first touch, like, come on, mate. But then you look at the guy who's ahead of him, Kyogo. We were speaking, he's missing a lot of chances. He's banging in the goals. And even the Livy one, the OG, he was right behind the guy ready to tap it in as well. So Celtic are scoring a lot of these goals where Kyogo's getting in at that near post and putting them in. He's doing his job. Giakoumakis is trying to win a place, and it's just not quite working for him.
There was a debate not so long ago, Stephen, like bubbling under, and some people have decided, as you get debates on every point imaginable on the internet now, right? But there was a debate about, who starts these games, Kyogo or Giakoumakis, and I firmly believe there was a genuine debate between the two of them, because they were both capable of scoring the goals. They're both capable of getting the goals he needed, and sometimes I thought the chances we were creating were maybe more suited to Giakoumakis than Kyogo. And I think even in some games recently that's been the case, except Giakoumakis has been well off the boil. But since the return, that debate seems nonsensical now.
For me, I think I've grown a little bit weary of it. I said this in the At the Match podcast as well, but how I've grown a little bit tired of this debate, because it seems to be that, as with a lot of these things, a lot of football discourse, it's either one or the other. It's black and white. You can't really, there's no grey area. We can't just appreciate both things. It has to be the Messi versus Ronaldo. You kind of like both. If you like both, you're daft. You have to absolutely sort of double down, entrenched views. It has to be one or the other, right? This is on a much smaller scale, of course.
I mean, as a Kyogo fan, I like Giakoumakis.
Yeah, respect.
As a Giakoumakis fan, I like that part.
Yes, exactly. And respect to you for doing that.
Thank you.
Thanks for seeing football pales into insignificance at a time like this. I've grown a little bit tired of it, because it seems to have just become, it devolves into this guy's pish, I want my guy to play. Yeah. And you see quite a lot of it online, to the point where everyone's just like, well, you need to play Giakoumakis because he's the big guy, he scores goals. Kyogo misses chances and Giakoumakis doesn't. That's not the truth at all. They both miss chances. That's why they've both ended up at Celtic at 28 years old, respectively. But for these specific examples, I can't see the logic in playing Giakoumakis from the start in these games, because, not to be arrogant about it, but this is Celtic, right? We're Celtic, and we are looking at games. How can we play best into the strengths against the strengths of the opposition? Right, Livingston are defensive. They pack the box.
They're surprised to go defensive after his part.
Well, yeah, the 4-3-3 we're going to get at Celtic stuff. Yeah,
we really bought that hook, line and sinker, didn't we?
How did that work out, Davey? But we are looking at these games and thinking, they've got big defenders, so how do we combat that? We stick a big guy in there, we can put crosses into him, and they can just head them all away. I don't get it. I don't understand the point of this at all. For me, it's firmly the opposite of that. We saw some examples of this earlier this season, where they went to Ibrox and got a draw because they just let Rangers put dozens and dozens of crosses into the box, headed them all away, and managed to grind it out. Kyogo has scored in both recent games against Livingston. Giakoumakis has never scored against Livingston. In fact, all he's ever done against them is miss that penalty in one of his first appearances. Two. Of course, so he did that a year apart, didn't he? That's right. So he's missed 2 penalties against Livingston. Again, I'm only because I'm mostly joking about this. I don't mean for it to come across as a go at big GG. But to me, Kyogo is he's the perfect tool for that task. How you beat these teams is getting in behind them, opening them up somehow in the wide areas and putting crosses.
Really got this management stuff nailed, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Open them up somehow and score a goal.
Well, dangerous.
Just sorry to jump in, Stephen, but the 2 goals against Livingston, the OG one was a low cross, and then the other one was a low cross. Most of the goals against St Johnstone were low crosses, apart from Hitate's smasher.
Yeah, you get in behind them and you put the balls into dangerous areas that they can't defend against. No lumping it into the box.
Did you just snigger at balls?
Get in behind them in balls.
On a football podcast. Unbelievable.
getting behind him and put passes. Why do we call passes balls anyway?
I don't know.
Doesn't really make any sense, does it? But anyway, put passes that are into dangerous areas that they can't defend. Look at what happened against Livingston. That guy Obelai just smashed it into the roof of his own net from about 4 yards because he'd never seen what he's used to is crosses coming in that he can head away. Put something at his feet and he smashes it into the roof of the net.
There's a lot of fuss in the Livy game. Obelai getting a ball drilled into his feet was obviously a first, and the Scottish officials having to deal with an offside call was another one. That reminded me very much of Ange a couple of months ago now, was asked about VAR, and he says, "Look, I don't care. You know, it's not it's no big and it's no fancy and it's no new. I had it in Australia for years." What I don't understand is why it's front and centre every week. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, and why it's taking so much time. And his thing was, it's impacting the game too much. These decisions should be quick. That was a fortnight to decide whether or not somebody was offside. And we made a joke on this podcast when VAR was first coming in about how they'll all be scrambling. Oh, have you got the rule book over there? And Googling things and all that. And I strongly suspect that's what was happening for that Abada / offside decision, Melly. I think that happened, and the people involved that are there to make the decisions quickly simply did not know the rules. They had to go look it up somewhere. They had to debate it amongst themselves. They had to figure out what the actual rule was because they didn't know. And really, their only job is to know the rule. That's the only thing they're there for.
Yeah, especially the VAR. The VAR referee is the one that says, look, that's a wrong decision. The referee gave the goal. The linesman gave the goal. Yet it was called back for VAR because Abada was offside, but the defender heads it. So is he onside after that? Then you need to think, well, is he interfering with play because he's right behind the defender? All fine. I thought when it happened it would get disallowed because I thought, look, the defender knows he's there. It's maybe put him off. I have never, in all my time watching football, I think they said, can't remember who said it, but they said, right, so the linesman didn't give it. That's fine. Mm-hmm. The referee didn't give it. The VAR official says, I think that's offside. That's not how it works. You say that is offside, and then the referee goes, okay. For a referee to have to go over the video to look at an offside, it's never been done before. Why are we the first at this? This is incredible. Offside is offside, so he's either offside and interfering with play or he's not. Why is a referee having to go over and overrule his linesman and overrule a VAR guy about a decision that shouldn't be considered in VAR? Because if VAR says he's offside or he isn't, yet this referee has to run over, and we're talking minutes and minutes here.
It felt like 7 minutes.
Aye, something like that. The offside is in no way subjective at all. There's nothing subjective about offside. As long as the rule is applied, you're either offside or you're not. That is literally black and white. That is the lines on the pitch. If someone is in an offside position when X happens, then is offside.
This one's a wee bit different because is he interfering with play or not? But then,
you should decide that based on what the interpretation of the rule is. You shouldn't it shouldn't be watching replay after replay. You can judge that from a still, but you wouldn't even have to see a replay. You can
nothing to do with the ref after that.
You just judge where Abada's position is and whether he's interfering with play when that ball is played, and then you make a decision there.
See this VAR thing. Are we now the only league in the world who still talk about VAR on a weekly basis?
Probably.
And is it partly because it's new, and is it partly because we like to talk about it, we don't like to talk about it, but we choose to talk about it? But, when you're watching English football and then the World Cup and all that, VAR now is just sort of integrated into the game. People moan about it, the delay, you need to check the goal and blah, blah, blah. But what I don't see in other, like when I'm watching Sky Sports and I'm watching English football, what I don't see is they've made a cock up with VAR here. You never hear that discussion anywhere else about how, even with VAR, they've made an arse of it, or why is it taking so long? These are things that seem exclusive to Scottish football. As our part-timers are getting paid, £800 a game, plus expenses to bumble about and figure out the rules as they go along. Meanwhile, we're the ones who are paying the price for it. We're the ones sitting in the stand wondering what's going on, not really knowing, or you're sitting at home at TV twiddling your... It's really, really... The whole point of it was to seamlessly integrate into the game, and that just simply hasn't happened.
It's genuinely painful at this point now at the game, the length of time things are taking. And there was one in the St Johnstone game where an incident had happened. It was a David Turnbull sending off, right? So he runs in, steams in and boots the keeper straight in the head, right? And that took a wee while to work out what had happened, and eventually he was red carded. But I think Kevin Clancy forgot that he had any kind of job to do there, because the entire time the keeper was being treated for his head knock, which is fine, right? That if there's a head knock,
head or into the chest,
whatever. If they're treating it as a head knock at the time, that takes time, right? So that's fine. We deal with that. That's something that should be allowed. If a player has been potentially seriously injured, we'll deal with the length of time that takes. However, could you not, during this lengthy period of time, could you not have checked the VAR then, instead of standing about, hanging about over the downed player, making small talk with the physios and all that, and then you remember you have to go and check VAR to see what the incident was in the first place? That was an extraordinary length of time again as well. So it's, I genuinely don't know what the answer is here in speeding this stuff up.
I just don't think it's ever going to happen. I mean, you're right. I mean, what was the Matthews? I think was a keeper that get hit in the head.
Right.
You're lying in the ground and your brains are pouring out through the crack in a crack in your skull that big old clumsy David Turnbull's giving you, and you've got Kevin Clancy standing there going, are you okay, Kevin? please fuck off, Kevin. You're making it worse.
Cara shock as well. Not even the worst VAR decision of that match. Not even the worst decision referee wise, because Real Hatate's second goal is nowhere near offside. And when you seen it when we were watching it at the game, it didn't look offside. Then when you see a replay for 10 seconds, you can see he's not offside. 3 minutes, over 3 minutes it took them to come to the conclusion it was not offside. What are they doing? What are they watching?
Well, are we in a situation now where if Celtic score, right, okay, no, take the conspiracy out of it, Jamie. Are we in a situation now where if you're a linesman and a team score a goal, right, and it's not contentious offside, but it's like you throw your flag up anyway because it's going to get checked? So are we in a situation where an unconfident linesman or a linesman who's not very good at his job will just be throwing flags up at anything because he knows it's going to get VAR checked anyway? So I'm doing my bit. I'm flagging everything. There's never going to be an offside goal in my watch because I'm fucking up there every time a ball goes in the back of the net. It's because it's going to get checked anyway.
But it's going to get checked if he doesn't put it up. So
but I think the logic would be if you flag and it's not an offside, right? Nobody ever cares, because it gets checked and the goal counts. But if you flag and you catch an offside, well, good job, you done a good job there. You caught an offside, well done. That was close. How did you get that? I didn't get it. I just guessed. I'm just throwing my flag up every opportunity because I don't know what the linesman saw there.
No,
it wasn't even close.
No,
so I'm just curious.
No, and again, it needs to be explained. But and I know people say, "What are Celtic doing this?" I've no doubt Celtic behind the scenes are going and asking these questions.
Especially with Law back in the scene, he runs the SFA.
He's opening that big drawer and he's going, and he's blowing the dust off that dossier. Remember the Doogie dossier? And he's just faxed the front cover over SFA Towers just to let them know he still got it.
But it was a shocker of a decision. It was a great goal from Celtic, and I can understand if VAR looks at it and then you go, but it wasn't even close, and the linesman's right up there. We've always maintained that linesmen guess most of the time. They guess, but the one job is to look along the line. And when you see the still of it, he could fit another player in between the guy and Hatate. It's not even close. Lovely finish from Hatate. And Stephen, why did they score 2 goals? Because he was wearing Mizuno boots. Absolute teasers.
You can still find them.
Yeah, you don't see them
Hold
much.
on. Did we strike up a sponsorship with Mizuno that I've not been told about recently?
No, because he was playing right back when he came over to take a throw in. I said to Stephen, is he wearing Mizuno boots? You don't see them much these days. And he was like, yes, actually. Nice to see them.
Yeah, other boot brands are available unless Mizuno wants to drop some of that cash into 20-minute Tim's Towers.
A great story.
Well worth saying.
It's just nice to see them.
And you can still find them, as I say.
Stephen, what's your favourite brand of football boot?
Sondico.
Do you like those ones? I like a pair of Lottos.
The thing is, like, see if the linesman gives that as offside mistakenly, or even just as if they've just guessed and given it offside. I don't care about that, right? I don't really care about that because offside is hard to do anyway. Players are faster than they've ever been, right? The game's at 100 mile an hour. The ball is played and you have to be watching when the ball is played and the line at the same time, right? I don't care if they get that wrong, but VAR should be able to clear that up in literally seconds. Yep. Literally seconds.
Are we, this is what I suppose my point is now, are we blowing it out of proportion by even discussing it? Should we? But I mean, part of me feels like no, because I used to enjoy the game of football without VAR. You brought this thing to the table and it's just a dog's dinner. So don't blame me if we're the ones talking about it.
Aye, well, we were sitting here with our nice little sort of fine dining little plate, lovely presented and all that, and what the VAR have done is come over and dumped a big bowl of spaghetti right on top of it.
No, I think what we were dealing with was shit refs, and the refs have got this idea here, we're going to fix this thing, and then they've brought over a broken computer, and now you're just watching the shit refs try and fix the broken computer. Like you've made this problem worse.
Aye. They've made football so much better as a result as well.
We're thankful.
And it's totally cleared up any contentious decisions at all. We've barely even spoken about it.
Best decision was bringing it in not even halfway through the season. They decided to bring it halfway through the season and then brought it in earlier, showing that they were never ready for it.
What was the first game supposed to be for VAR?
It was meant to be it would have been the Rangers Hibs game.
Aye, it would have been that. It would have been one of these games here. Tis the season for clean balls.
Fa la 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 la.
Right, but our friends at Manscaped are helping you clear your driveway for safe travels this holiday season. From stocking stuffers to gift exchanges, Manscaped's products are the top of every wish list. Grab some crop mops for your pops or the shampoo for your boo. Be the star of gifting season and help all the men in your life go from eggnog to nice hog this December by going to manscaped.com and using code TIMS for 20% plus free shipping.
Manscaped offers a handful of the liquid formulations, shampoos, body washes, upstairs and downstairs deodorant, gels, exfoliants, absolutely everything they could need to keep it clean. And why not top off the stocking with a crown jewel for their family jewels, the Lawnmower 4.0. The electric razor's advanced skin-safe technology is a life changer and known for reducing nicks and cuts on his Santa sack. It's just a ball sack trimmer from your podcast mate, Jamie.
That's right, get 20% off with free shipping with the code TIMS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code TIMS, Manscaped, for a perfect gift that will be the holiday's biggest hit. So that's maximum points out of those last couple of games, with or without the help of referees and VAR. But I don't think there's any denying that the next two games could be season defining, but particularly the Rangers game on the 2nd of January. We're away to Rangers, we're at Ibrox, they've got a new manager in, he's won his first 3 games, 3 out of 3, conceded a lot of goals. We are doing a lot of content for that Rangers game. Patreon.com/20minutetims. We are live for extended build-up before the game. We're shooting content during the game. We're producing podcasts and writing after the game. If you want to get involved in supporting your favourite podcast, patreon.com/20minutetims is where you can do that. Stephen, if we beat Rangers at Ibrox, is the league over?
Yeah, I'd be willing to entertain that conversation at least. Anyway, I don't think it would be beyond.
Started at yes, and then by the end of the sentence it was maybe.
Yeah, it's a bell curve of a conversation. I will certainly be open to talking in those terms, because I've already said that. I think I said, when we were looking pretty unstoppable, Rangers were looking a bit shaky, had to sack the manager and all that. I said, look, if we beat them in January 2nd, I will be willing to entertain the conversation that the league is over in January, which is kind of insane when you think about it. But that's testament to, as much as we're sitting here moaning about VAR and daft decisions and all that, Celtic have been in incredible form this season. I don't want that to be kind of forced into the background, a kind of background story in this when we're moaning about decisions, because it is important to acknowledge how good Celtic have been in all amongst all this nonsense. As fun as it is to talk about VAR every single week, it is important to talk about how good Celtic have been. So with that, I think it is massive, because it's very obvious to say, but on one hand, right, we could basically have one hand on the trophy should we win at Ibrox. And I don't want to talk about it as if it's already happened. And I certainly don't want to talk as if the Hibs game has already happened. But all going well, we could be sitting there with one hand on the trophy in the first couple of days of January, which is incredible, really. But what we don't want to do is the opposite. We don't want to think, right, they've got a new manager bounce now, because they've not looked good, but that will be the narrative. See if they manage to beat Celtic or even get points off Celtic in any way, that will be that we are running scared of the Beale ball revolution and all that. So we don't want that, and there's only one way to just shut that right down immediately. It's to go out and beat them like like the better football team we know we are. So that's the task at hand. But there's no getting away from the fact that it could be, basically, one hand on the trophy after that game.
I just want to acknowledge something for the listeners. You might wonder why we're skipping over the Hibs game, right? We do acknowledge that Hibs game is coming up, but we're sort of hedging our bets a wee bit. By the time you listen to this, It'll be on the evening of, or maybe after the Hibs game, and we're going to have a match reaction podcast out for the Hibs game on Patreon. So we're going to cover the Hibs game. We're not disrespecting Hibs when we're talking about this. We're just planning content intelligently. Martin Melly, league over if we beat them at Ibrox?
To be honest, I'm more worried about the Hibs game than the Rangers game. I think that Rangers game will take care of itself. I think if Celtic get through,
nonchalant of you.
Don't all games sort of take care of themselves in a way?
Don't throw him off, Smelly. don't listen to him. Continue to make your point. I just wonder
what the distinction between the Hibs game doesn't take care of itself, but the Rangers one does.
Because the Rangers game's the game where everybody should be on fire. Everybody should be ready for it. But this game's sandwiched in between this last game and this one, and it's the one. Sometimes you can look beyond a game, and I don't like doing it, but I think Hibs will pose a threat. But if Celtic go into the Rangers game having won, I predict Rangers will probably win their home game, whoever it's against. It's going to be very interesting because looking at it, Celtic should go out and beat them, but sometimes it doesn't happen like that. But I still feel if Celtic go out and play the way they have in even the St Johnstone game, we should have enough within us to beat us because we've got good players there. We could be going into the game with 3 new signings under our belts as well, so they'll all be eligible to play, but I doubt any of them will make an appearance. But look, Celtic are going into this off the back of very good form before and after the break. If we can get past Hibs, we'll be going into this, and you think, look, this is a massive chance because last season, the last sort of question we had over Ange's team come the end of the season was, look, can they go to Rangers and beat them in their own midden? And they done that. They done that quite handily, even though it was only 2-1. I wasn't very worried during the game once we got ahead. But you've seen in dominant Celtic teams, where it be Martin O'Neill, Brendan Rodgers, we went to Ibrox and won fairly handedly, as if it was just another game. That's what you're looking for from this team now. We're smashing everyone. There's one more team to smash away from home before we can really say, look, we've got this. And I think if Celtic can do it, I think they can do it. Will they do it? I think that's up to Celtic, because I'm looking at Rangers starting lineups recently. I've not really got much to fear. Ryan Kent against potentially Hatate, but I'm sure Juranovic will be back by then. But look, Celtic are in a good position. It's up to them to go out and show what they can do.
Yeah, I mean, I've just got a feeling we're going to smash them. I just think that this...
What smash them? What are you saying? 4-0?
Something like that.
I think so.
3-0.
I don't think so.
They're conceding a lot of goals at the moment, and I just think this is... It's all Emperor's New Clothes with Michael Beale. I think the guy's a bit of a myth, to be honest. He's meant to be the brains behind the Steven Gerrard revolution, but I mean, that was a flash in the pan. That was a COVID season, that Steven Gerrard thing. If he was the brains of that operation, then his CV doesn't show much in terms of wins, in terms of silverware, in terms of beatings against Celtic. They got a few, but I mean, we all know what the shape the Celtic team were in when they beat us. So we've got
the Emperor's New Officers Club.
Emperor's New Brogues.
Yes, Emperor's New Brogues. Any more?
Just try to think of
Don't
one.
take it if you've not got one.
Giacomo. There you
go. The point I'm making is that I think even the Rangers sort of slanted media, and the Daily Record is just a full Rangers fanzine now with some of the stuff. But even them, it's just like, if this guy had substance, if this manager had anything about him and this team had anything about him, right, you wouldn't have to come up with all this crap and these fake stories. You don't see that with Celtic and Ange. It doesn't exist because there's no need to make it up. We do our talking on the pitch, as we have done for a long time. And as I say, our team is absolutely chock full of quality players, and I'm looking at their team and I'm like, who worries me? Fat Morelos. The guy's a turkey. He's just survived Christmas by skin his teeth. Ryan Kent, he's chucked it. He wants away. Beale said the other week, they were asking about new contracts. These guys don't know why Rangers fans are desperate to give these guys new contracts. If it was Celtic, you'd want them out the door. There's a different... He sort of did a wink, wink, nod, nod. There's a different tone to the conversations now that I'm here. Yeah, but there's still no signed contracts, and fuck knows why you'd want to keep them. So Cholak, I don't know if he's injured or if
I think he is.
He's injured. Alan McGregor's been dropped again, hasn't he? I think John McLaughlin played a couple of games for them. It's just all Stephen Davis out for the rest of the season. Arfield will score against us because he always does, but there's nothing about that Rangers team at the moment where I'm going, shit, we really need to keep our eye on that. Even the thing you're talking about Hatate at right back, I mean, what has Ryan Kent got that Hatate can't deal with? He's not going to burn them for pace. He's not going to work harder than him. There's nothing in that Rangers team that particularly worry me.
I mean, Ryan Kent is capable of probably just skinning Hatate a couple of times, but the thing is, the pattern is that it never really leads to anything. He just sort of dribbles. He's the king of doing step overs in his own half and then just passing it into midfield. That's basically all he does. Elsewhere, it's the famous last words and all that, of course, but they don't worry me at all. The defence looks deplorable. Defence looks absolutely terrible. Gaping holes in that. They're missing quite a few defenders right now, so I don't know if they're likely to get anyone fit in time for that. There's Goldson, who looks dreadful. I think they've been alternating between Sands and King, who got a bit of an injury recently. So I don't fear them at all. Up front, Morelos, the shape of him is... Honestly,
he's a wee Christmas pudding. Did you see me had a Christmas pudding jumper on?
Aye. And I saw the photoshopped inflated one as well. There was a massive one.
You shouldn't be fat shaming.
No. This time of year is a struggle for everyone in that regard, isn't it? Like, Morelos is no stranger to it either. But honestly, for a high level athlete, that guy is in some nick, and I can't believe he makes it to the Rangers first team in that condition, because even of Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's many faults, at least he got him told when it came to his condition. See this act that Michael Beale's putting on for the fans and for the media and all that, going ultra staunch on day one. And we've joked about this a couple of times, but I'd honestly be mortified if that was the new Celtic manager. People will obviously make the comparison between him and Brendan Rodgers. Brendan Rodgers fed us all that as well, right? He fed us all the Tommy Burns, Danny McGrain, all this stuff, right? Anton Rogan, right? Well, again, the examples will...
Smelling the mince.
The examples...
Traffic jam, congratulations.
The bringing the city together in a what was it, Clyde Tunnel traffic jam or something like that.
There's loads of them.
I mentioned Tommy Burns at his very first... now he's unveiling at Celtic Park and all that, right? So... all that stuff. So he fed us all that shite. But the difference here is that was all unnecessary. Brendan Rodgers was a top-class manager at the time, right? Michael Beale is doing it because he's no at that. He's doing it. It's a total smokescreen for the fact that he is a total charlatan and has walked into a level he'd never belonged at in a million years. I've made the comparison before, but that is like Celtic appointing Gavin Strachan as their first-team coach after Ange goes, Gavin Strachan, who has been in his first job for 20 games in League Two or something like that, and that's who we appoint. He knows that. He's insecure about that, and he knows it, and this is why he's playing up to this ultra-staunch pish.
Are you saying what he's doing is Rangers manager cosplay?
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
He's picking the affectations from all the previous Rangers managers, that he's been handed a dossier. Rangers fans like this, and this. Please mention these. These are your talking points. But if he's meant to be the brains... the Gerrard axis, the Gerrard Beale axis, if he's the brains of the operation, Steven Gerrard won one league during COVID when we had Neil Lennon as manager, and 9 attempts at winning a trophy. And he beat us a couple of times. The Steven Gerrard Rangers are not something that worries me, and his right-hand, third-hand man is not something that worries me either. And the quality of football that we've got at the moment, the quality of player that we've got at the moment, the only one thing that does worry me slightly is some of our top performers have come back, and guys that have scored against Rangers and done well against Rangers have come back looking pretty ropey. So... we've already discussed Giakoumakis. He's looked pretty ropey on the return.
Well, he's never scored against Rangers, but he has been effective against them.
That's what I said. I scored and done well.
No, I wasn't correcting you. I'm just saying.
Good, because I was right. There was nothing to correct, Stephen.
I'm supporting that point, yes.
Well, thanks for your support. Jota.
Aye, well,
Jota's not been great since
Jota's had a couple of goals against him, and Giakoumakis, that's a criticism that you could probably level at these guys. Him and Kyogo, neither of them have scored against Rangers. Kyogo's barely played against Rangers, in fairness. He does need that goal because, whether we like it or not, whether anyone cares to admit it, that's a thing for Celtic strikers, isn't it? You can't really get away with not scoring against him. Yeah, exactly.
Jota, he was, that fantastic goal he scored against Rangers at Celtic Park.
One of the classics.
One of the absolute classics. He looks a million miles off that player at the moment, doesn't he, Melly?
Yeah, he does. A few just games where it wasn't going for him a bit too. Some of the game time against Livingston, they're 2-1 up and he's doing the flicks and tricks and that. Right, come on, mate, they're brilliant to watch, but there's a time and place. We were giving the ball away needlessly, and it's just those wee things. But I think when it comes down to it, well, I'll ask you the question, because we've had Jota and Abada with the 2 stars in the last game. Kyogo went off injured in the first minute, didn't he? And Giakoumakis came on. as you said, Kyogo's not had a full 90 minutes again, or a full start against them where he's got to go right at them, has he? So up front, I think the first game he played out left weirdly, but I think if we're looking at what's the front three, because after the weekend, James Forrest I think done okay. I thought Maeda was really good against St Johnstone. Looking at players who have been there and done it, who's doing it now? Who's your front three against Rangers?
Let me add a level of complication to that. So it's Maeda for me. Yeah, probably Maeda, Kyogo. But does whoever is else making up that front three, does it matter who's playing right back? Because if you've got an actual right back in there, does that influence who you're putting on the right side of the attack?
Potentially. I think Juranovic will be back for then, and Johnston could come in. I think Ralston will probably even be there. I think right back will be fine. Even then, I think you're right. I think I would go Maeda, Jota and Kyogo.
Yeah, that would be my first choice.
Because I think that's flexible enough that, look, their thing would be get the ball out to their fullbacks and launch balls in, wouldn't it? So if we can have Maeda and Jota really press them, they've done that brilliant last season. I think I just want to see Kyogo go up against that defence from the start, because I think he could get a lot of joy.
I think there's a high probability that we might be very surprised when that lineup is announced, because of the number of wing options we've got, and they all bring something different to the table. And despite the fact that some of the names we've already mentioned aren't maybe in the greatest of form, the fact is they could turn up on the day.
Abada terrifies them.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, if Barisic was playing, you would put Abada in all day, man.
Did you see his direct? You see the article where he said he was exhausted from World Cup?
Oh, was it?
Some guy tweeted, Salt Bay spent more time in the pitch than Barisic.
Well, I don't know how likely it is he'll play, but if Juranovic is back, then you would suggest Barisic would be back as well in contention, because I think they've got a younger player playing who's a natural right back playing at left back for them just now. I can't remember the name, but it's good that, innit? I think I got away with it though. Don't pay attention to them. But I think if Barisic had any chance of playing, Abada's one of the first names in the team sheet, because they're going to get the better of him. They're going to get the better of him. I bet you never thought you would hear it out of me, but I think there's actually a case for Forrest to play in this game as well.
Yeah. Mental.
There is that as well. There is that Forrest has traditionally no turned up against Rangers, especially at Ibrox, save for a couple of games under Rodgers where he was excellent. But he looks really confident just now.
Yeah,
he looks like, I think he said himself during the week there that the gaffer has given him a new lease of life. He seems to be just growing in confidence in this team.
Do you think it's because his instructions are so clear?
Could be.
Get to the byline and cut it across. And any winger could basically do that.
Well, what you quite often find with certain players is that sort of novel stimulus, I suppose that you would call it. But I think having your instructions pared back a little bit, clarified, made ultra simple, is often when you can get the most effect out of a player like that, because everybody knows what James Forrest is capable of.
I bought you his book for Christmas. Have you finished it yet?
This is why I like so.
Have you finished it?
Skimmed through it.
Have you even started it genuinely?
No, I have not.
Ungrateful.
It's on the pile. It's on the pile. I don't see it taking long to get through. If I'm totally honest, I say there's about 12 words per page. so I'll fly through that. I'll get that done in time for the weekend. But do you know what? I don't think I would. I think the conclusion I would probably arrive at is not to play Forrest, but it was, for some reason, it just did pop into my head there that I think you could see him.
The last, I'd even put Haksabanovic ahead.
There's another one, yeah.
Haksabanovic has just got a bit unlucky that he was injured for that first game, and he's not been able to start the last two, but I would have no qualms about throwing him in at Ibrox.
Part of me worries about Haksabanovic a wee bit, insofar as he's too good to be second or third choice, and I think that's a guy that probably needs or wants to be playing every week, and it'll be interesting to see what happens, particularly next season, because you'd expect James Forrest to be playing even less next season than he's playing this season. Moving into midfield though, does Aaron Moy play? He's been really good on the run up to the World Cup, and since coming back he's been really good. The
St Johnstone game was just a pleasure to watch him play. It was utterly tremendous, just the way players are coming towards him and he'll just flick it round, or this typical Celtic goal these days seems to be Ralston done it and Moy done it, where you pass it through the centre back and the right back, the right winger crosses it in and Kyogo taps it in. Celtic have done that so often recently. Aaron Moy was a pleasure to watch, but I'm kind of torn, because I think in these games you need somebody who will keep hold of the ball, but at the same time I think that'd be better bringing on. You need guys with energy in there, and McGregor, O'Reilly and Hatate been there and done it at Rangers. Still think Hatate could do a wee bit more at Ibrox, but it's nitpicking a wee bit. I think Aaron Moy would be a great player to bring on at some point for Celtic, but he's been tremendous.
Do you think it's getting set up nicely for Matt O'Reilly's first goal? Because he's not scored all season.
I know he missed a big chance against St Johnstone, and it really seemed to knock his confidence for a lot of the first half. He didn't play particularly well. That said, though, I think if Juranovic is back, and we expect him to be back, I don't think there's any chance we see any surprises in midfield at all. I think it's going to be the McGregor, Hatate, O'Reilly thing. I'd be very surprised.
One last hurrah before he heads off back to Russia.
Prince.
Yeah, that's an odd one, isn't it?
Pointless, isn't it, really?
Yeah. If anyone isn't aware of what we're talking about, there have been reports in Russia that he's going to have his loan cut short. He hasn't been in the last couple of squads. He's not even making the bench anymore because...
We're linked with another player from the J-League. I did take a note of it on my phone, but the autocorrect has changed his name to Instagram. I've forgotten what his actual name was.
It's Tomoki Iwata.
Yes.
It seems to be a done deal. The usual stuff. It's always very reliable information you get from Japan because, shock horror, they don't have the same type of media we do, but they just make stuff up. If it has been reported in Japanese football media, it tends to be true. Imagine that.
Weird, that.
I know. So that seems like it's a goer. That to me would spell the end, definitely. If it wasn't already been reported, it's the end of Abildgaard because he's not featuring. It's also the end of Ideguchi and probably when he's back fit, James McCarthy. So that would seem to me to be tidying up that position. He is a defensive midfielder, an aggressive, tough tackling midfielder, right? So Abildgaard, it spells the end for him. It just didn't happen at all. Nothing whatsoever. In many ways, I suppose you could class that as a success for the loan system that Celtic adopt. They're not going to work out, but it could be worse. We could have gone out and spent 4 or 5 million on this guy, and he's exactly the same player that we find ourselves having to cut short the contract of. So I've not got a big problem with it. It hasn't impacted Celtic in any way. It's not like he's come in and played terribly and cost his goals and cost his games or anything like that. It just hasn't happened at all. He's not even making the squad anymore. So it's just one of those weird ones that came in. We didn't really see the need for a player of that type. It turns out we didn't need a player of that type, so he's gone.
Do you think, speaking of players that have not been performing too well since the break that we have previously relied upon to do well against Rangers, spoke about Jota, obviously, spoke about Giakoumakis. Joe Hart looked as if he's creaking a wee bit in some of these games, and he pulled off a terrific save in that Ibrox win in particular. That game I thought he did very well. But in these last two games, I'm not overly concerned about him, but he is starting to creak a wee bit. That's what you said when we were rewatching the game, Stephen.
Aye, I think it's been happening a wee bit this season. Again, sometimes we're misconstrued. Sometimes we pick out players that we have mild concerns over, and it quickly becomes, I can't believe you're criticising Joe Hart. The big man's been amazing for us. Totally agree with that. He has. He's been incredible for Celtic. He's been an absolute breath of fresh air because Lord knows we needed it after Barkas, right? Well, Lord knows we needed that after that season and after Barkas. The guy has come in and been absolutely brilliant for Celtic. Okay, established. Take that as read. That's what we believe about Joe Hart. That said, he is starting to get a little bit shaky. I don't think he covered himself in glory against St Johnstone for that goal that he just palmed straight back out. It looked, to me, I said this when we were watching it as well, it looked like he was doing a goalkeeping drill, and the point of it was to give it back to the guy who was putting shots into it. He put it straight onto the toe of the guy who was standing right in front of him. Didn't look good at all. And it's not the first this season. No. He's still very capable, more than capable of coming up with big saves and big moments. Did it loads of times in the Champions League. But that, the very nature of being the Celtic keeper is that we need him to be alive in these moments, and he's just starting to look his age a wee bit, unfortunately. Right,
I'm not going to end the podcast on these negatives, right?
Right.
So, as a positive, we're going to talk about how good Callum McGregor's been since he came back from injury, and how influential he could be at Ibrox for us.
I think he'll be the most influential player. I think him and Carter Vickers probably I'm looking at going like you two. I've got a sneaky feeling it'll be a match for Maeda as well, but Callum McGregor has come in. Like, players come in and you sort of to get them back in slowly, introduce them slowly. That doesn't happen with Callum McGregor. He comes in against Aberdeen, man of the match performance, winning goal, and since then he's played every minute of every game. The guy doesn't need time to get up to speed. He dictates the speed of the game, so he's an incredible player. It's probably the reason Abildgaard failed at Celtic, because he came in very late and you're up against Callum McGregor. It's why I then wonder if Iwata's good, then is Callum McGregor going to get moved forward? Because Callum McGregor's always going to play. I just look at Callum McGregor and think, right, Ibrox, if he's got the ball, I have no worries. And it's always, like I said before the break, I was a wee bit worried because of the play, but when Callum McGregor's there at Ibrox, I think Celtic will dictate and play the way they play, and he'll dictate the game, he'll dictate the tempo, and if we can get him on the ball, I think Celtic will be fine.
I just think we're a much better team, Stephen. I just think player for player, we're a much better team, and I think especially in that midfield, we're much stronger than them. And in particular, they just don't have anyone that comes close to the level of Callum McGregor and that whole team. They don't have anyone.
No, I mean, it's been an enduring image of those derbies in the last couple of seasons, well, the last year or so, about Callum McGregor chasing Barisic about calling him a shite. You know, that's an absolute terrific Celtic-based meme of recent times. No, Callum McGregor he's massive. He's massive for this team. And when he came back, what I thought was, like, Celtic can play well. We can get away with it without Callum McGregor because, again, the setup of Scottish football is that we've got better players than everyone. Than everyone up to, including Rangers. We've got better players to varying degrees. But when Callum McGregor comes back into that, we ascend back to that level that we know that we can play. That full Celtic, full free-flowing Celtic. The reintroduction of Callum McGregor has been huge.
We need to send Rangers league hopes right down the drain. We need to throw them out with a Christmas tree. We need to make sure Michael Beale has got the shortest honeymoon period of any Rangers manager. And I think if we beat them on the 2nd, it's game over for the league. I think it's done. There's no way we're dropping the points required for them to come back and take the trophy off us.
Normally with a big statement like that, I'd be going, ooh, but I can't even.
Calm about it? You're relaxed?
I can't even muster up or anything. I think that's that's a mild take from you. Saying,
is that not hot enough?
No, I don't
you
think.
know what? I'm going to save all my hot takes for Patreon.
That's a korma of a take.
Is that a butter chicken of a take? Is it? Well, I'm going to save my spiciest takes, right, for the live build up, and all that stuff's on. I'm saying that to camera, and I forget it's audio only this week. I'm saying all that stuff to camera, and that's going to be on patreon.com/20minute-tims if you want to support us. If you want to support us in another way, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, you can leave us a review on iTunes, you can leave us a review on Spotify now, you can subscribe to us on YouTube or leave some comments down below just to work that algorithm a wee bit for us. Thank you and goodbye.